Hi everyone, I'm Leanna,
I'm Rita.
And I'm Vanessa.
and we're going on a
Dino Adventure!
Hop in! The adventure starts with one dinosaur from the late Jurassic period. Can you guess?
Who's that dino?
It's the Brachiosaurus. Now on to some fun facts about the Brachiosaurus. Their common name is long necks, with the meaning of their name being arm reptile because of their long forelimbs. They are herbivorous, meaning they feed on plants. They weigh 35 to 41 tons. Imagine 35 to 41 cars stacked on each other. That's huge! They are 82 feet in length and 42 feet in height. Next are special features pertaining just to the Brachiosaurus. Their skulls and vertebrae were hollowed to help restrict weight, or else they wouldn't be able to lift those heavy necks. They had large nasal openings, which helped them have a great sense of smell. Their thick thigh bone was about 7 feet long to help support their weight. Now, I have a question for you. What are some advantages to having such long necks? Good guess! One advantage was to eat leaves off trees. A second advantage was to not drown when crossing through the water. And a third advantage was used as a fighting mechanism when trying to prove their dominance to other males. Now on to dentition, meaning teeth. They had pointy teeth, which isn't much help when trying to break down all the plants they were eating. So we believe that they may have had gizzards to help grind up their food, like seen in chickens. They must have had an incredibly powerful heart to help pump blood from the neck to the brain since it's such a long ways. They may have had muscular blood vessels with many valves to prevent backflow of blood. Their blood pressure would have also been 3 to 4 times higher than humans.
Next stop on our adventure, we have some dinosaurs from the late Cretaceous period. Can you guess?
Who's that dino?
It's the Ankylosaurus. This is a cladogram, which demonstrates the evolution of thyreophora or shield-bearer dinosaurs, such as our Ankylosaurus. Early thyreophorans were small bipedal animals, which means they used 2 legs for walking, like the Scutellosaurus. Later on down the line, they evolved into the Scelidosaurus, which was a larger and more armored quadrupedal animal, which means they used all 4 limbs for walking. Thyreophorans that are more derived than the Scelidosaurus were divided into 2 major branches. This included Stegosauria and Ankylosauria. This picture here shows the head of the Ankylosaurus, and as you can see, it's triangular in shape. This triangular skull was covered in bony plates. Even the eyelids had bony plates to protect their vulnerable eyes. The head was often surrounded by long, sharp spikes that were more towards the back. One shake of that spiked head could do a ton of damage. Here in this picture, you can see at the front of the head, the Ankylosaurus had a horny beak. Based on this type of mouth, what do you guys think their diet was? Awesome! This was perfect for their herbivorous diet because it was used to crop the vegetation. The Ankylosaurus had leathery skin that was about 0.5 to 1.0 centimeters thick. On top of that skin was thick, oval-shaped armor plating. This armor was made up of densely packed osteoderms, or scutes, which were deeply embedded plates of bone. These plates of bone were covered by a thick layer of keratin, the same protein contained in rhinoceros horns, so you can imagine how tough they were. Much like their head, They had spikes running all along their side and on the top of their bodies. This helped with protection against other dinosaurs that might want to eat them. The only area that was not protected by armor and spikes was the underside. So if the Ankylosaurus was flipped over, it could expose this vulnerable side and they could be injured or killed. So based on these features, what type of animal does this dinosaur remind you of? Think of a hard shell. You're right. Doesn't it remind you of a turtle? The tail club at the end of the Ankylosaurus tail was made of large osteoderms or bony scales that formed within the skin to make it very hard. These osteoderms were attached to the last few vertebrae in the tail, and these were supported by the last 7 tail vertebrae. Scientists have discovered thick tendons that were once attached to the vertebrae, combined with the rest of the tail structure. This possibly allowed the Ankylosaurus to exert enough force to break an attacker's bones. Based off what you guys just learned, what do you think the tail club could be useful for? Good job! It could have been used as protection to defend themselves from predators.
Can you guess?
Who's that dino?
It's the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
The biggest distinguishing feature of the T-Rex is their really large, sharp teeth. As you know, T-Rex are carnivores, meaning their diet only consists of meat. These sharp teeth, along with their really strong jaws, allow them to grab hold of their prey. T-Rex are also known to be really big. They can measure anywhere around 40 feet and weigh about 7 tons. Because of this, they need ways to help manage the load. So there are 2 major ways they did this, and I'll talk about that today. The first was by having really thick, large back legs to support their weight. Another way they minimized their body weight was by having hollow bones. The bones in their skull also contained small air spaces that made it even lighter. What's interesting is that this hollow bone characteristic is common in some theropods. This is a group which included the T-Rex and even modern-day birds. So this leads us to believe that the T-Rex and modern-day birds share a common ancestor, although the birds more than likely evolved from much smaller theropods. So from this cladogram on the right, we can see that hollow bones first developed in the Allosaurides, which were bipedal carnivorous dinosaurs of the late Jurassic period. Then we can see that the Tyrannosaurids evolved, which were similar from the Allosaurids, except the fact that they lived in the Cretaceous period. Then at the very bottom, we can see our most modern-day relative, the bird. The next major characteristic of a T-Rex is their really long tail. So what do you all think are some benefits to having a long tail? Those are some really good ideas. So some theories that I found when researching is that their long tail could have been used for balance. We can see from the picture that the T-Rex had a really large head. In fact, the largest one measured around 5 feet. So in this instant, the tail would allow his body to be balanced out. Other research showed that a certain muscle in the tail, the caudofemoralis muscle, which is located right under the tail, provided additional force for when the T-Rex ran. Another benefit a T-Rex could have had from a big tail is that they could have used it as defense when fighting other dinosaurs. A recent research project studied how the tail might have moved, and they used that to determine how fast a T-Rex might have walked. So their final results showed that a T-Rex walked around 3 miles per hour. So if you can walk faster than 3 miles per hour, then you're good. Until they start running. Now, finally, we have their small arm characteristic. So, because dinosaurs are not alive today, we don't really know for sure why or how they used certain body structures. And this is especially true for their small arms. So, how do you think they used their small arms? Great, those are some really good ideas. So, there's actually a few theories as to how they use these small arms. The first is that they did a mini hug in which their arms would hold in the prey. They would keep it in a certain place. So, similar to that, they also use their small arms along with their two small claws for close combat. So, anytime a dinosaur would be really close in front of them, they would grab a hold of the prey with their two arms along with the claws. So, some cool information regarding their arms is that there was actually an article released early this year that theorized why T-Rex have small arms. So, the reason for this is usually T-Rex feed in large groups. So, when they would start eating a prey, it would result in just a giant, crazy feeding frenzy where all the T-Rexes are just eating all at once and going crazy. So these researchers theorize that over time, the T-Rex evolved to have even shorter arms to avoid having them bit off during these feeding frenzies.
These are just a couple of references that we used. Thanks for coming with us on this dinosaur adventure. We encourage you to learn about other dinosaurs and keep their memory alive.